Hey, well, welcome to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast live here today, and I just thought I'd take a little bit of a step back here for today's stream. And hey, by the way, Linear, great to have you on board here, and really looking forward to getting together hopefully sometime next week on this program you've got working for the concept you have. And as of yesterday, we just went through a little lesson plan on getting some line weight stuff down. I thought we'd just take a bit of a different approach today. And the real task in this attack drone thing, I want to take a different approach to it, really. I want to do some plan view studies and some maybe elevations and maybe little thumbnail sketches. And the real purpose of today's stream is to look at maybe some conceptual stuff that may be asymmetrical, a little bit different than the typical aircraft or drone systems we see out there now. But looking for, hopefully by the end of the day, looking for something we can kind of convert into a nice line drawing and put an illustration together for maybe next Tuesday when we start another stream and so forth. So it's really going to be interesting. I'm going to just work with a Sharpie fine line pen here and go real lucid with some of these just plan view sketches and what if themes and looking at the possibilities of getting a nice new adventuresome look to kind of convert into a nice 11 by 17 illustration piece for the bookstore or for purchase, etc. So let's just kind of go through some things here and just strike in some really interesting little, just real lucid little sketches here. I'm just going to go through some plan views here, just kind of get it started. Just looking at basic themes, adding a little bit of turret on one side here, maybe rolling this off, kind of come back and let's just asymmetrically, let's just pull this surface off of here. Just nice little things here. Just kind of come back in and really romance that thing. Come back into this. Maybe we bite that system back a bit. We connect it here and disconnect it there. Now we come back in. Maybe there's a power plant on the other side here that's just kind of an interesting little approach to it. Maybe it's this kind of a little diamond form that has a little bit of a thruster on it that just sticks out and does the following. That's all power. This is all bridge support here. So just kind of put that in place. This might be a little bit of cockpit study here. Just take that back into the form itself. And some vacuum, maybe fueling systems on the inside if we have to go refueling and so forth. Just neat little, hey, Ballistic, how are you? Good to have you on board here, Chief. Hey, Shadow, nice to see you too. How's everything, Doctor? Nice to have you guys on board here. And just as I said here before I started the stream here, just looking at yesterday, we did a lot of little lesson plan studies on for example, it was a line weight studies and putting the two processes together. So I thought after I ended up yesterday's stream, I started looking at just what if we did some really different looking attack drones? Maybe there's a different format like asymmetrical mono wings or different platforms to build these things on to make them a little more sinister. And see what happens here. Interesting to see go through. I'm just gonna, as I said, real lucid sketches, nothing fancy today. And at the end of the day, what I'd like to really accomplish is, hey, we found something that's really kind of cool, and we can work with to kind of do some little thumbnail sketches on, maybe just putting in the color. I'm just going to go through some real fast little gestures here. Just looking at plan view what ifs and just again, refueling, dump, and so forth, and coming off that wing surface. That implies that cockpit is underneath that surface itself. Let's split this beauty up a little bit more and kind of break down the forms. Get into some flaps and foils, and then take some bleeders off the side of this guy. Just nice little, what happens with that guy? There's one approach right there. Now, if we did that, let's see what happens if we did this. Let's come back in and say, well, maybe there's a little bit of tone to this thing. Let's put a little bit of this into it. Main body form here, a little bit of an offset, wing surface. Just tone it all in first. And put a little bit of variation on the theme here. Maybe there's a little bit of a color accent. We kind of come back into here and just kind of go back and just put a little bit of tone in this guy. Put a bit of an offset where the struts are, just to come back in. Just loose little sketches here. Little body designation, just to get that down. Then slowly come back in and say, all right, let's regroup this thing. Just kind of re-illustrate what we've got here. Just inform to see what we have. Tighten it down just a bit more. Squadron designation of some sort on the wing panel itself. Come back into the cockpit. Again, looking for just basic overall, what do we do with this thing once we start looking at some plan view pieces here? Once we get one, we kind of need to just kind of offset that beauty and begin to put it into a nice little illustration format of some sort here. So let's kind of come back in here and just put more, some little scoop devices in through this guy. Some striping work and so forth. Just looking at, again, basic platform studies. And it's just a little more tone to it. It's kind of get back into here. A little bit of an offset here. And again, back to the engine nacelle. asymmetrical, like a boomerang or some sort of catamaran look to it. There's one approach there. What if we did the same thing? Let's go back the other way here. It's going to come back in and do this. What if we come back and kept that same basic feel, but really cantilevered that cockpit area? Maybe brought that out. And we brought this line back in, created a delta. Kept that little blister here. Now in this case, let's do a little offset here, like a radar pod of some sort. That's all telemetry. This is all cockpit up front here. Then we kind of come back and work up a wing system here. Let's do this. Let's come up with this delta. Break this thing out. Come back in through here and do a little bit of canard stabilizer on one side here. There's a nice little, let's split that in half. Come back in through some telemetry stuff. Come back and get this end of tone back in and just do some neat little, just pen sketches. Again, just plan view, exploring shape. What do they start to look like? What can we do with this thing? Hopefully coming up with a nice little, by the end of the day, maybe this is all engine nacelle here too. This is all part of that whole process where you get this nice big deep burn out the back, and then let's just kind of put a little bit of an afterthought, afterburner pack back here too. We'll break this down. Just again, really kind of spooky little sketches on breakups. Ballpoint pen, or pardon me, Sharpie pen, just some neat stuff. Just going to get this body fuselage in place here. Just going to tone that in. Just real lucid. Looking at really interesting captive forms here. And again, just real rapid sketches. What do they begin to look like? For example, a little bit in perspective here. Let's kind of get this into place. Let's put this pod down. Let's get this little blister come up the shape here. Just kind of reverse that form here. Break that up. Bring that balance up. Get the cockpit in place. Put that in there. Rotate that out. Get that wing structure up. Some canards. Stabilizers here. What happens off of this side? Let's kind of cut this back just a touch. Maybe on this side there's an offset. This is where the power plant might be. Changing from the rectangular piece to a round piece. Put the bridge off of that. Real wiry, loose sketches, just kind of looking for a theme. Again, a little bit of color accent. Just gotta put some theme into this thing. A bit of tone here, a bit of tone there, a little bit of body graphic in this guy. Come back in here, just touch it just a bit more. There we are. That's that. Let's get a nice little light gray, kind of a combination here. Put that little spoiler in place. Tone this back just a touch. Get that canard to come down. Real loose little value studies here, just to kind of get a character down. The interesting little sketches here. It makes it come together, that view. There you go. This comes all together, just taking a look at, again, plan view of one area, and then coming up with this supportive little engine strut. Let's kind of get that in there, detail a little bit more. Come back into this. And so on. We bite that thing back just a bit. A little bit of language designation on that guy. And we call it a day. And then behind that, maybe just a little bit of theme graphic to just kind of give a little bit of composition here. More section detail. real lucid little black and white studies, just real fast little thumbnails, putting it all together and looking at different formats here. It's going to go back to this some plan view stuff here. Let's see what happens if we did this. What if we diamond this guy? Then from that, pull off a wing surface, something like so. Now off of that, intake, breather, and let's pull this off. It'd be kind of cool. Let's take the cockpit out here. Pilot's occupation right here, just an offset, kind of neat, off like this cantilever, this bridge, maybe it's all cantilevered like so, it's supported like that, comes off of here. Intake, cut line, another cut line, more intake here, some breathing skill, some gills back here. And it's just kind of really configure this guy. I'm really not going to spend a lot of time doing a lot of detail here. I just want to get a theme down that might look kind of interesting here in terms of what do we do with this guy. And that goes there, there. Yeah, interesting. That's not bad. Let's kind of come back into here. One of those, and just give this thing some real guts here. What do we do with that kind of configuration? And what does it look like when put a little bit of background behind this guy? Asymmetrical all the way through the whole cockpit. I thought that was going to be a camera, but I mean, yeah, maybe it could be. But I think that's cockpit, and then the drone system would be here. And then it's just got to put a little bit of tone in this guy, give a little bit of flavor. Looking for themes. Just a real simple blush in the plan view, almost like a delta form. Let's kind of play off of that one more shape here. Let's do this. What do we split it? And suspended the cockpit in here. There we go. It's kind of evil looking. Kind of a sinister diamond, and put some camera systems up here. Cockpit. And again, bring the wing surface off of this. Again, this is strictly asymmetrical. That's all we've got there. It's almost like a floating pilot, some sort of like a glider. Very interesting, kind of an interesting. Doc is designing what will be hunting us down in SE. Yeah, there you go. Some hunting stuff. Yeah, cool. Nice interpretation there, Shadow. Looking good. Let's put a little bit of tone in this guy here. More body in this guy, a little bit more of just a deeper probe here. Let's take advantage of that cockpit, a little bit asymmetrical. There you go, that's better. And these guys, maybe some breathers back here. Let's cut the wing back just a little bit, make it a little bit more sinister. Almost like a parasite here. And then we'll come back off of this with a nice little, and then get a camera probe off of this guy. It's going to be a full rotation camera system here. Let's get this all through. Let's kind of put this into place here. Let's kind of block this in. Kind of interesting here. Let's get a little bit of a dark concept back behind this guy. Let's pull this into play. little background area here, little theme study. Bite that in, bring it back out again. Run that through. And just for designation, a little bit of plan view break. That's kind of interesting. That kind of breaks down just a touch here. It's kind of tighten down just a little bit more. Just real lucid sketches. Let's put a little bit of tone in this thing, see what it does. Maybe these little tips back here get a little bit of color. Give it some wickedness to it. Maybe this canard has that just a touch of that. That comes in here. And last but not least, maybe there's a little bit of designation here that comes in and just picks up a little bit of body graphic on this guy. And where the cockpit is, there's maybe a little bit of tone in this guy. It's just right in there. There it is, a little bit of glass surface. And that trims back just a touch. It's got an interesting little plan view format there. Yeah, it's a little bit too stiff here. Let's kind of put some stuff into this thing so it kind of doesn't look so static. I'm going to put a bit of body in this guy. So it bites back in. And there it is. This thing kind of suspends itself in that little nacelle area there, ballistic. The initial yellow-gray sketch was giving me an F-86 Saberfield. Yeah, the initial F-86, that's true. That is true. Looking good there, ballistic. Nicely observed. Again, real simple passes of what happens, for example, when you look at some of the architecture that's out there now. Yeah, it's pretty typical. We've got a lot of stuff. For example, there's a lot of rounds. For example, we can do this, come back in and pick up like a triad of 3. Almost like a Mercedes element here. And then pull that off. Let's see what that does. Maybe that's cockpit. And out of this comes an extreme wing surface. Aha, that's interesting. Yeah, this is going the other way. That's interesting. Intended to go forward, but now this is maybe a rearward system with these trusses that hold some sort of a, if we're back like an AWACS process back here, that could be kind of cool. Now let's do this. This is where the cockpit is. It's nestled inside this little lobster crawl. That's kind of neat. Then we come back out of here with this. That form comes into that. That does that. Let's kind of repeat that. Let's keep it asymmetrical here. And then that breaks back into this, which now becomes engine intake. Not bad. Interesting. Again, let's put a bit of tone in this thing. A little bit of still sequences. That's interesting. Well, the plan view of that thing could be, that's a plan view of that study. That could be kind of neat where you actually come back in and just do this semi-round piece that just has a little bit of these outriggers on it. And for example, cockpit facing in that direction. So now we're looking at this guy instead of going north, it's actually coming down south. That's an interesting little format there. Hey, Captain Nemo, how you doing? Good to see you. Hey, no problem. Glad you joined us here, Captain Nemo. We're doing some drones, some attack drone study, looking at some asymmetry. If I were to look at it, maybe another nerve, like maybe a mono-wing drone of some sort. It could be kind of an interesting, different way to package this thing. So good to have you on board. Hope you're doing well, Chief. So we're just doing some real rough. I didn't want to do anything really lucid. I mean, anything real tight today. We did that lesson plan yesterday at that. Let's come back in and do some real exploratory, just real quick thumbnail sketches on what it might take to do a really neat SC attack drone with a different format. Maybe there's a different asymmetry to them. You can go with these things. You can go, these are all plan views, a little bit of perspective study. Plan view again, looking at different formats and how we work with this guy. So let's kind of put that off to one side and keep going here. let's go back in and say, all right, if we've got that going, let's bring this back just for a second. What does this guy begin to look like in perspective, just out of curiosity? What if we did this? And that's cockpit. That sits in there like so. That just nestles inside that little claw. And as that comes out of there, look what happens. It comes back out and it comes into this. It does a little bit of this, then it does a little bit of that. And this boomer comes off the back of this thing. And that could be the actual recon dome itself. Let the cockpit to nestle in there. And this kind of flattens out. Then there's the intake. Maybe that marries into, there you go. That comes in and does that. There's a little bit of nacelle change in here. Little group. That's all structural. That can be all really interesting structural piece here. If it comes out, that comes back underneath, bites into that. That does this. Then that canard comes off of that and it goes back the other direction. So it comes out, and we come back off of this thing. That wing surface comes back and does that. Maybe we drop something here off of that, drop something here off of that. That's going to give it some intrigue. And then this, break the form up a little bit more. Let's kind of break this down just a touch more here. And this is where the actual, let's get this thing to kind of drop out here just a touch here. So we can see where that negative is. Let's just play that up just for what it's worth. Come back in here and just kind of get a nice little dark area back in through here. Again, no purpose today. Looking for something that has a little bit more character to it in terms of a different format to package, and maybe coming in on Tuesday and doing a nice little series of sketch rendering stuff to kind of fill out the page here. This comes in. Let's refine this back, just cut this back just a bit more. There you go. That changes that character just a touch. Comes in through here, right down on this wing surface, and then just kind of let it go. And again, just really quick little thumbnail sketches. And again, just a little bit of tone in this guy. Put a bit of color designation in these guys. Just drop this off a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and a little bit of warning system right here. Just a little bit of color added to it, just to kind of give it some character. There's a little thumbnail sketches here. Hey, the Mercury is about as far as I could go with this asymmetry. Yeah. Frankly, I have a bit of asymmetrical phobia. That's the word. Yeah, asymmetrical phobia. No, okay. Let's got to bring this back into format then. Let's see. Let's just go back in through here. Hey, there's a little perspective study. I'm going sideways on this guy, so I like where this is going. Hey, all right. Great. What a little bit of color trims do the sketch. Yeah, just a little bit of touch here and there. Nemo really makes a big difference. So there's some little thumbnail studies here on what we might be looking at in terms of again, looking at some different asymmetrical approaches, like maybe phase one, doing a little plan view studies, a little bit, oops, that pushes a little bit of perspective into it and so forth. And just looking at overall, what are we looking at as in terms of format? This is kind of interesting too, where it's really kind of an intriguing little cockpit study here. So let's put that out of the way for a second here and come back in and just keep building on some of this stuff. Maybe let's go back to that little plan view here. I'm intrigued by this diamond look here, just for what it's worth. Let's get that started. Let's plant that in there like so. Let's take this out and begin to cantilever that. I mean, that's cockpit right there, way out there on the extremity. Just a real big, interesting. Just for a second here, we get some real color in this guy. Just gonna knock that out, split it. Let's take this guy. Okay, bring this guy back into play. Another little plan view sketch here of lining up this triangulated piece here. Might not be too bad here. Just kind of breaking it all down, looking for some really interesting themes just to kind of work on here. Really looking at the possibility of a real strong asymmetrical piece here. And again, it might be just a different way of looking at the packaging of this stuff. And from round to triangular, looks like almost like an origami. Yeah, origami. Yeah, there you go. It's got it. Just had that same kind of plan view appeal to it, I think. And I mean, you were right. So there it is. Just kind of real loose little thumbnail sketches. Let's do an elevation of some of these guys now. Let's see what happens here. If an elevation, this comes up, comes back. Cockpit pushes out of that. Maybe it's just a nice little drop piece in here. Or command center, rather. Come back underneath, a little bit of tone to it. And one more pass here, just to kind of sharpen it up just a bit. A little bit of designation here. And a little thumbnail study here, just an elevation here, what that thing might begin to look like. So again, just exploring this day, just looking at certain things. We're looking for just plan view changes or little surface changes on. Let's go back to this guy just for a second here. And just real quick, what ifs, looking at shape and form, what are they starting to do, what's the configuration begin to look like, all these little thumbnail sketches, just to kind of give me an idea of where I want to take this thing. Is it too radical? Is it less radical? Should I kind of pull back a little bit? Does it need to go, let's go to another sheet here. Does it need to come back in, for example, with some sort of a conforming wing like this, where we come back in, maybe start here. Oops, excuse me. Again, just a little fast little thumbnail overview of maybe a 3/4 overhead shot of this thing. Baby probably. Don't I wish? Hey, hi, Brett. How are you? Good to see you. Shiny message. Hi, Brett. So that's what Doc does when he tries his hardest. No, I'm not trying my hardest. I'm just kind of pulling things together here and trying to look for exploratory work here. Hi, Brett. Good to see you guys. Look almost like an again. Yo, what up, Doc? I don't think I'm learning anything today. I'm underrun. Oh, it's too bad. Really, here I had a headache. We're just going through some real conceptual thumbnail studies here on looking at drone configurations and just little plan view sketches and some real lucid Sharpie pen sketches, Brad, and so forth, looking at all, putting it all together here. And again, a little page of little thumbnail sketches on potential packaging and so forth, or what these things might look like, or the character and the plan view, and some little elevation and perspective studies. And just the last little thing here, just doing some very interesting little concept sketches on what this thing might look like in terms of putting together all the neat little elements we're looking at as far as a drone is concerned. And maybe it's just, let's go back to some of this stuff. Just again, let's just get this guy up to speed here. Maybe it's more of this now, just a nice little diamond form, like a heart form, like so. A little rounder. And then that, you've got this cradled cockpit of some sort, and that comes out here, does that. A little recon boom out front. A little more character by that sketch. You just got to split that nacelle down the middle, and there's cockpit right in there. Something like so, or else command center. This thing is doing. Maybe it doesn't need wing surface at all. Maybe it's just a simple little form like that that has a nice little over curl on it. Some structural changes here. Just looking at different configurations. Maybe these are paddles that kind of move or articulate. I'm just doing a whole lot of what ifs here today, gang, and just Yeah, just really exploring what the possibilities might be looking for in terms of putting a little thumbnail sketches on drawing animals. I mean, hey, Doc, you have any experience with animals? This still amazes me. This is Penn. Interesting. Yeah, nice concepts. Looks like a pretty broader. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but yeah, I've done some animal work and so forth for illustration and so forth, and some film sets for Disney productions years ago out in California. So, yeah, a little bit of that. Are you going through that process now, Brett? Sounds like you are, huh? Shiny messages. Let's see. That's a prouder. Yeah, I think we're going to look at. I just want to do some real pen sketches. I mean, I just want to spend the day kind of breaking through the paradigm of pencil and lesson stuff, and maybe marker a little bit of marker added here. I'm sure, but some of the drone work we're looking at is just getting an idea. Some really lucid sketches. That kind of what I'm trying to do today is let's go back to square one. Square one is this. Started here. I just started looking at some things after yesterday's stream, and really looking at after the lesson plan of getting them thick and thin and some of the form and position pieces together. That way we kind of switch gears and go to a pen system and do some attack drone stuff with a different configuration. Maybe it's not the typical 4 prongs and props and so forth. Some sort of an asymmetrical system that would really join in and take a really a different look at some drone or attack aircraft. So I'll start out with some little plan view sketches, and maybe we can convert that to a little elevation or perspective, and back to a plan view again. Looking at different configurations, triangular, round shape, adding wing foils, asymmetrical wing structures, and so forth. So that became the first one. Then the second, we kind of opened up a little bit more and did a little bit of that same theme. How does that look like in perspective? And then do a plan view back to it again, variation on theme. Some little perspective and elevation studies on some of these aircraft that we're looking at here. Not quite, I was just a bit clueless. This is how you approach fur and feather. Also have a charcoal painter friend who also draws around and gets proportions correct, but they end up looking like this. Yeah, I think that might be something we can look at future reference here, Brad. That's an interesting thing. I think a lot of delicate line work is going to take place there. If he's working with charcoal, it might be a fine line pen or a pencil of some sort to get that to take feathers or fur to really very delicate, tedious line work and so forth to get that taken care of. So we might look at that future streams as we go here. And then last but not least, came back in and just put a little bit of perspective, maybe an asymmetrical main body of the actual form itself, whether it's piloted or non-piloted. It could be one or the other. And again, looking at something that's asymmetrical, we can put a double wing on this thing, but I just wanted to take a look at taking some chances here today on breaking the paradigm and getting a lot of asymmetry. And so that's basically where we are today, just doing some little thumbnail sketches on what do these things begin to look like if we begin to attack this. And what I'm going to do is continue on with this, just some little exploratory stuff here, and really look at the possibility of, all right, what do we do with this thing? Because I'd like to maybe start out next Tuesday in my program with just doing a nice finished rendering of one of these concepts, or take one of those themes and refine it a little bit more, and see what we can come up with for what it's worth. I've been doing a lot of little pencil sketches here and there, and I've really found it really has done the job for me here. We'll take a look at some of these combinations and see if we can't find something that can put a nice composition together for a really neat looking attack drone. Any comment from the gang here? This is a bit of a big departure, I'm sure, but let's kind of lay these sketches out a little bit here so you can see some of the variations on themes. Any concept or any conversation at all about what we're looking at here? Feel free, anybody, please. Well, okay. 2 questions, fire away. Brad, what you got? All set. Brad, take a minute here and just see what your questions are, sir. Looking good. Brad. Let's see, how do you imagine the object from the top down after you already drew it from a certain... I think a lot of that is perspective, perception, Brad. I mean, when you look at, for example, my Imagineering goes as such. I go through a plan view set, and I'll watch where the proportions are, for example, some of these sketches, and then I'll begin to take that and then an object from the top down after you've already drew it from a certain angle. If you get the perspective down first, I think that gives you a lot of clues. For example, in a case such as this, you have the perspective down, then you switch gears and go to plan view. You change the configuration a little bit, but you have some format as to where the proportions are. Main body, engine system, canard or wing surface. So you put all these pieces together on how you can really begin to put together both plan view. I think it's much better to work from plan view into perspective as this perspective into plan view, because the plan view will give you some idea of proportion, scale, area, etc. Much different. Let's see, another question. Does that help, Brad, hopefully? Linear, the far left one reminds me of a Kingdom ship, Klingon ship. So you like the smooth sides and more. I think the smooth side ones are kind of interesting. I think linear good. The smooth side is nice, but I think the linear, the very sheer looking, almost F-117A look is kind of a spooky thing to work with as far as drone technology goes. It's a little more sinister, I believe. Real Shattuck, let me answer this question here. Hey Doc, it'd be fun to do a drone that is deployed from the hull of another ship. Like the mini drone you had come from. Yeah, that's something I might look at for next week. I think taking some of these clues and doing maybe a parent vehicle, like an aircraft, an attack aircraft, and then maybe bury a drone in it and then show that as part of the whole process. That could be kind of cool. Yeah, that's a good idea, Shadow. Thank you very much. Back to Brad. Yeah, this means a lot of practice. Well, I think let's go back to that comment about you made about how to draw. And so your question was, how do you imagine the object from top down after you already have drawn it from a certain angle? I think it might be best to go back. Look at it this way, Brett. Your second question here. Yeah, it means I have to practice my perspective more. I think it's a matter of really looking at, yes, perspective plays into it, but if you're looking at some very interesting things to deal with, I really recommend going to plan view first. That will set the proportion for the perspective. And instead of perspective, setting the proportion for a plan view. Now, you could look at it from the point of view, if you get the perspective down, then move into plan view to look maybe variations on themes, changing things. Plan view, meaning looking right down on it. I mean, I'm looking right down on the plan. There's no perspective whatsoever. I've just taken an object such as this mouse, just taking that mouse, which is in perspective, and I've done that. I'm looking right down on it in the plan view. So I think if you look at that from that point of view, you might have a whole lot more success when you start to generate some of the things you're dealing with here. So back to Linear's question, that far left one reminds me of a King. As questions go, do you like the smooth sides or the more? Yeah, I think you're referring to this one, Linear. Yeah, it's mix and match. I think the pursuit here today was to look at something a little more configurative in terms of different approach to drone technology and aircraft systems. Yes, it's asymmetrical, it's a little bit spooky looking. It's a little bit different for flight dynamics, I realize that, but I think I'm looking for an exploratory shot at saying, all right, let's do something really neat and finding a nice formula here to work with. And I think Shadow's point about getting some really interesting stuff in here, for example, doing a parent ship, like an attack fighter, and then dropping a drone out of it that does a job, like a mean-looking attack system, would be really cool. So let's see, Brett, what do you mean by, okay, understand so far so good what the plan view is doing there, Brett? That's great. And I hope that advice helps. I think it really would help if you're doing figure work. Maybe it might not be as applicable, but if you're doing animal work or plan view or product work or whatever you're dealing with, I'd really start with some plan view looking systems first, then convert to perspective. Once you see the perspective, then you can convert back to plan view and keep modifying the theme. I'll go through that a lot of times doing plan view work for vehicle design or product design. I'll start out doing some elevations and some plan views, and once I see where the proportions are, I'll turn it into some really neat looking perspective sketches, hopefully. So anybody else, any commentary about the pursuit today? It's a bit of a departure for me, I realize, but I just want to get a little bit more tuned into just drawing, doodling skills and looking at packaging and looking at configurations and forms and so forth to begin to put into a nice simple, for next week, maybe a nice little drone package that has a jet fighter to it or an escort fighter attack to it. Anybody else? Nemo, you still there? Departure is good. Yeah. Dare to dream, dare to dream. Well, yeah, that's right. That's what this is all about. It's taking a different stab at typical configurations, and I realize a bit of a risk going into asymmetry and so forth. But I think it's fun just every now and then just step out of the guidelines, so to speak, and begin to generate things that maybe become challenging. Who knows? Some of the stuff is interesting too. Look at this, for example. If you look at this in a plan view, that's one approach. But what happens when I do this? When I go to the side, all of a sudden I've got aircraft systems. Everybody with me? Now I've got aircraft designs. Look at that. In side view, for example, really interesting. Alien ships are usually asymmetrical, and it makes me want to. Oh, I'm here. I like the top. Right one is behind the paper now. Oh, it's behind the paper now. That one. And I, Brett, don't understand. Pardon me. Clarify the question again, please, I, Brett. Oh, I think what you're getting at. I started these sketches, for example, in the plan view, looking right down on them. What's interesting about that approach, it's really interesting how the whole idea, for example, if I'm looking down on this thing, if I rotate these sketches, all of a sudden I'm looking at jet fighters in the side view, that the proportions change. I mean, look at there's a difference in the wing structure and a different approach to attacking the surfaces and so forth. They have some really interesting potentials to convert into really interesting aircraft designs. Again, from the side view, not just the plan view. That's the magic of going into the process of design thinking. You can start out in a plan view, and you can rotate. It's almost like an empathic study where you rotate it and turn it upside down. It just changes character. All of a sudden, you've got a different plan view look when you go top to bottom. So I keep things pretty fluid from that point of view. It's really interesting how the more fluid you become, the more lucid you get, the more intriguing things become, and you can really do a lot of different things with them as opposed to just being set on one or the other. Shadow here. Yeah, those. Does that help now, Brad? Does that make sense or not? Yeah, it is random, very much so. And I think that's part of the whole process, Brad, about the randomness and creativity. To me, is really exciting. It doesn't have to be set by formula. A is to B is B is to C. It can be really interesting to change the randomness or the organization and become very random. You know, what if? That's a random approach, and I think that opens up a lot of doors for great creativity. So that really helps. Nice to shadow concussion. Yes, and the top could become a side view or half. Yeah, that's right. You change it around and become extremely fluid with it, and all of a sudden your vocabulary changes, Brad. I think that's the nice thing. I can see it working. Yeah, it does work. It changes your thinking. It opens doors up, and allows you to become, I think, a lot more lucid. So that's the reason for the stream today. We have a drone. It looks like this, but what if we change the paradigm and change the configuration? And look at maybe asymmetry, plan view studies, single wings, mono wings, offset cockpits, and engine and power systems. All of that is random, but it opens up doors for some really interesting creativity. So, anybody else, any commentary? This is really cool, gang. I hope you're having as much fun as with this as much as I have. Just kind of going through them. Interesting stuff. And again, the purpose today is to just look at all these variations on theme, go back and maybe I'll work on some things tomorrow and just put together a package of maybe a simple concept sketch to put it all together and prep for maybe a Tuesday rendering illustration or maybe a lesson plan out of that as well. You've been really good here, gang. Great activity. This is fun. That's what it should do, hopefully, in a stream such as this. When you open up the doors to for conversation and discussion, it leads to a lot of interesting commentary. So thanks very much for the input. This has been really helpful. Anybody else? Well, if not, again, thanks so much for taking the time to be tuned in today, gang. This has been a lot of fun, exciting, little bit of a change of pace for me, looking at the exploratory stuff as we go here. I'm Doc. Thanks a bunch. Doc, thanks. Yeah, that's it. That's cool. Very good. Always yeah, it's a lot of fun. So for those of you out there, thanks so much for joining in. Hope you're all there. Nemo, hope you're having a great day. Brad, hope I've answered some questions. And Linear, so very kind of you to join in today, and I really appreciate the input. And again, looking forward to seeing you hopefully soon. And for those of you, for example, please take a moment to look at my website, drcontrast.com. Maybe some things going on there. Had a new store added. We're adding some books and print work and the like. Also, really looking forward to getting some interesting things taken care of on the site as well. And we'll be carrying on, for example, with this thing. I was tired. Yeah, better when yeah, that's good. I'm glad you tuned in, Brett. It's good to have you on board. We'll look forward again. I'll start again next coming Tuesday at maybe 1:30. We'll look at this thing. We'll take some of these sketches and begin to tune in a little bit and get a nice concept put together for everybody to work with. But again, I so appreciate all of you being on board today. Great time, excellent information, good feedback, and just a lot of fun. So again, have a great day, everybody. And I will sign off with this because I think it's really critical to do. So 2 things before I do that, though, please. If I've said something wrong here today, tell me. If not, please let me know. I'll be more than happy. I'll be more than happy to comply. And above all else, just really appreciate the input. So take a minute here. Drop me a note at jim@drcontrast.com about things. That'd be interesting too. What kind of things would you like to see me do in the future here? I'm trying to revamp the schedule and change some times and so forth, maybe for the new year. But we're looking at that very seriously with the Shadow Man and his buddy Pixel. And so we're kind of looking at that very seriously. And Melissa, hey, thanks very much. Good to have you on board as well. And last but not least, I will sign off with this because I think it's really, really interesting. And it's important. It's a very important comment near the end of the program here. This is what we're after. Simply this: never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. All the very best, and thanks for tuning in. All the best. Bye-bye now.